By now, we all know that this is a Chinese virus. This originated from China and has caused massive impact and huge toll around the world. But why is it that the Chinese actually came out with this? What drove this sinister plan is exactly what I'm going to talk about. Point number one, the huge competition with America. We all know that America and China are both competing for global domination, which is why at the back of a massive and a very ugly trade war between US and China, it made perfect sense for the Chinese to have a situation where the American economy gets massively compromised due to a pandemic. What would that mean? That would mean that the American officials would have to come back to the negotiating table with no leeway, no leverage, and hugely disadvantaged because of an economy that's been ravaged by the pandemic. So, to that extent, it makes perfect sense for the Chinese to have a situation where the American economy has been compromised. Who knows, it may have a huge political cost as well. Donald Trump, remember, faces a re-election, and he's never minced his words when it comes to the Chinese and his dislike for them. He was the one who actually coined the Chinese virus, and the Chinese would of course be wanting that the political cost would mean end of President Trump's re-election bid. So to that extent, it makes perfect sense for this kind of a sinister plan to come up from the Chinese. Now, before I come to the impact this will have on Europe and how it would cement the position of Beijing in their own perspective, let me first address the issue of crude oil prices. If you are the world's largest consumer of crude oil, what would you want? You would want extremely benign prices, and you would want huge storage capacity. Imagine if you knew in advance that prices are going to hit so rock bottom that it would be unimaginable that a liter of water would be as much as a liter of oil. What would you do if you are the largest consumer of oil? Well, you would go about storing it, won't you? That's exactly why lower or record low crude oil prices makes perfect sense for the Chinese, because that will give them huge competitive advantage in not just the foreseeable future, for a significantly long time, and of course would also mean that they would ensure that the US or the American energy industry gets severely compromised. That reason alone could be extremely significant. Now let me address the issue of Europe. Europe, ravaged by a pandemic, would be permanently, irreversibly weakened. I have absolutely no doubt about it. ECB has been trying to give those quantitative easing for almost a decade now. They've run out of ammunition, and the pandemic is something that is just beyond their arsenal. As for UK, things get worse. You are out of a Brexit, which means more uncertainty. And now, if you have a pandemic ravaged economy, well, there's only little that can be done in terms of resurrecting the economy. And of course, it means that you're in no position whatsoever to be able to call the shots when it comes to the world economic order. Now, let me talk about Africa. In the last decade or so, the president of China has made no bones about how he's wanting to further cement control as far as African countries, which are very rich in mineral deposits, are concerned. They've pumped in money, they've picked up huge infrastructure assets, and of course are providing massive doles as well. All that, of course, is the debt trap diplomacy, which I'm not going to get into right now. But the fact is, Africa now has a huge Chinese presence. Now imagine the situation of African countries. They don't have any manufacturing, they don't have any industry. What do they have? They have minerals, they have commodities, they have oil, crude oil. All of that slumps because of huge reduction in prices. What are they staring at? They're staring at almost bankruptcy, not being able to pay salaries to their government employees. Who do they look up to? What is the best case scenario? Obviously the Chinese. They come in, put in maximum amount of money, huge amounts of money they put in. What do they manage to get? They manage to get a sway, a foothold, and a further cementing of their position as far as mineral-rich states, mineral-rich nations in African continent is concerned. Angola, Nigeria, Gabon, these are mineral-rich countries, and Chinese would be very eager to have a huge presence in them and further cement control. This, of course, is just the basics of connecting the dots that one can see as to why this sinister plan could have been devised. If it is, then obviously it means that the world economic order has to have a response, because Chinese are not going to succeed in this. And that's going to be another video that I'm going to come back and tell that the economic impact of this is not going to spare the Chinese at all. It's going to impact them as well. But this was only meant to tell our viewers, tell my viewers watching this, that why the sinister plan to spread coronavirus was actually created and devised and thought out by the Chinese Communist Party. What do you think of it? Do leave in the comment section.